whenever I'm teacher educator and I work in special education and I preparing teachers and training teachers. So I really don't like, the term training. We are preparing teachers. So I always start with questioning myself or when I just wonder something, and then that is a question, right? So I'm in special education, so automatically whole time I'm preparing my students to be competent teachers. So that, they are going out and teach children with disability labels. So it doesn't mean, I only teach, prospective special educators, special education teachers. I teach elementary and secondary students as well. However, majority of my students will be soon to be prospective teachers. So whenever I just think about preparing my classes and studying and doing research, and always just lingering about the disability and this concept, and then I just studied my book and the first chapter, what is ability and disability? We call it disability, and then there is ability, right? However, we don't call just a John with ability and Jessica with ability. However, we call just, John with a disability, and then we add a specific, term there, so learning disability, intellectual disability, autism spectrum disorder. We don't say disability disorder. We use medical term. So we have those, terms there. However, disability term itself means, we have ability, right? So it's like a norm standard criteria is ability, and then disability is under there. So we don't have those skills. So let's say any country, any society you go, everybody can play piano, and then I cannot play piano, and then I have a disability in playing piano. Right? So no matter what reasons, my all finger motor senses and finger skills and finger functions are fine. However, I never learned, playing piano. And then previously, it could be handicap. However, now United States, we use the handicap, that term all the time. So nobody likes that term. So that handicap is more like an environmental based. It's not innate disability or impairment. So only the words, related to the impairment. So anyway, that's why we don't use it. So that's just like ability and disability terms are very kind of, vague. And since, it's not clean cut and dichotomy, here is ability and here is a disability. That's why I use that as just, paradoxes. And the human world is all about the paradox, right? There is a good, there is a bad, and nice and not nice, and wicked. It's all just, this is just a balance about human society. If it's all, in this whole world, it's only staying with, only angels here, and then all fun people here, and then there is no just conflict and no fighting, no argument, no debates, and it could be, we don't probably lose our, standard and criteria. So that means the human world is just like automatically we have those paradoxes, and then each side we try to balance it. So we just like a kind of competition. That's why competition always give the people just a passion and then try to do more well. So we say just like, you just give, children grade, no matter what they have or how well they did, you just make just a rank from the top, from first to the last, like, Asian countries. And then most of the children pretty much may try more. However, they may not enjoy learning anymore because everything is about the competition. So it's all just, good side and then not the great side. So that's why I call just studying, thinking about the ability and disability and human functions. Let me share my slide. As you see, this is like unraveling paradoxes in neurodevelopment. So as a special educator, this is how I start my question, ability and disability. What is ability? What is a disability? And then think about the next one. It's like a human function. So we, in the old philosophy, we call it, everybody knows, in the mind and body, right? Human, at the before, it was like a human is just one. So only just people thought about the just visible things, human bodies. However, human bodies has a invisible one, untouchable one. So mind, what is a mind? Mind is a mental, like this, or mind is like an emotional part inside you. And I automatically touch my, chest because we saw think here is our emotions, but mind and mental, and it is really like or emotion, everything is just like happening, it happens in our brain function. And then we had cognition. So mind and body became cognitive psychology and behavioral psychology. So cognitive psychology still, it just minds about the mind and mental and the brain functions. And then behavioral psychology is all just a visual one. They only just see the only visual one. They believe just the body controls mind. And then this cognitive psychology said, well, cognition controls the body. So body just follow what cognition, your brain says, just let's go here and there, and then your body moves. So that debate is just still ongoing and still continue. And then this is, central nervous and peripheral ones. This is about the human, all neurons, right? All neurons, and then central nervous system. Actually, here, as I see, this is the, this is the central nervous system. This is a spinal cord. So actually, it goes move here, and then here is what happens. This is a brain, right? And then all information, most of you took intro psychology class and child development and education, learning, not education, child development and learning, and education is fine. So you are in teacher preparation programs. We call it the EPP, and then pretty much you took those classes, you already learned about this. It's like a computer system input, and then here is a brain, and then here is the output, and then brain is a memory storage here, and then just short-term memory and long-term memory. You saw all this. However, pretty much here is the environment, the physical environment or social environment. Environment is a two-side, right? Physical and social. Physical is just like my furniture structure you see, behind me, a lot of these physical, my room in physical stuff, right? And then social environment is like human beings, people, your friends, family, and if you're a teacher, and then your students, and then students' parents, principal. So these are social environments. So for babies, newborn babies and children, and pretty much before school age, their social environment is their family is a main, and then extended family. And then these days, not many children, come out to the street and play with the neighborhood children. However, they go to preschools, so they have a preschool, peers, and then later they go to schools, and then they have, peers in the classrooms. So that's how they learn, and these sensory inputs, so all their learning is just from the environment. They observe visual inputs, right? Visual input in the visual information, visual things, and then auditory and tactile. These three sensory system is pretty much a major, sensory system for observing and receiving sensory information. And then it goes through, let's say this one actually, from here, environment, and then it goes through a highway to the brain. It just all moves to the brain through your eyes, through your ears, through your just touch, and so feeling, and it goes to brain, and then brain process it, right? And then it goes out as a just act or behavior, and that act and behavior is pretty much language. Excuse me. And as a child, mom calls, "Hey, John," and then John just go to comment, "That's John. Hey, John." Mom cannot see it. Just he heard mom's calling in his room, and then he just answered. It's just like a sensory input, just so quick. And then it's a sensory memory, 2 to 3 seconds. He responded in word, and then, "Yeah, I'm here in my room." Right? That's, how quickly they just process information. However, the child study for the, test or reading a book, it takes more longer, right? And then working memory just moves. Like before, it was just like a sensory memory, quickly just observe, receive the information and then quickly process that's a mom's voice. So child answers, and then mom, child knows, and mom will come out, and then boy knows, probably dinner is ready, and or just a mom ask me to help, or mom just try to give me snacks. So all kinds of reasons, and then child just gets up and going out. That's motor, right? Moving. So that's how, this learning system, it's a very simple knowledge. In sensory system goes to, all information from the environment, and then goes through the, this spinal cord and central nervous system, and then brain process it, and then they react, respond, and it's outcome. And then, or they just store in the, short-term memory, no, long-term memory, because this processing time is a short working memory move. So, and then eventually it goes to the, their brain long-term memory. So this is how human learning goes. But through this, these days, let's go back to, this part. This is the term we are using these days. It is long, many words. I just made a dichotomy, just like a two side, like a functional intelligence, potential intelligence. Many of you may not heard about this, so I'm going to talk about this one later. And neurodevelopmental disorders, we heard about this a lot, right? Neurodevelopment. That is a neurodevelopment. And then, as I said previously, like a cognitive impairment, cognitive disabilities, intellectual disabilities. And before, we used those terms, but now, neurodevelopmental disorders, I see this is a medical term. It's not, educational term, not psychology term. And well, psychology term, we have a neuroscience. However, neuroscience, they are not medical doctors. So they probably do, MRI, fMRI study a lot in neuroscience. However, that is pretty much, it's not really like a detached. I don't know, I don't want to even go detail there because that's not my areas. But in psychology, we have a neuroscience, and then we have a neurodevelopmental, part. And then all children, newborn babies, goes to these neurodevelopmental stages. So you go to, CDC website, there is a child developmental, chart, pathway chart. So it's like, newborn to 2 months old, 4 months and 6 months. So as a parent, you can see it, and even teachers, and I even studied and see how, children develop neurodevelopment, how they make neurodevelopment. And then they make, those areas is cognitively, they show this much. Language, they do this much. Socially, they do this much. And then moral, they do this much. I don't think they have an emotional part probably it has been very long time ago. So more like, emotional part, it's all, even though it says cognitive, language, social, emotional, pretty much moral, these 5 areas is all cognitive part. So we call it cognitive itself. It's a executive cognition, and then they have cognitive intelligence, and then language there, language cognition, social cognition, emotional cognition, and then moral cognition. So we call all these, cognition. Again, this is, I'm not psychologist, I'm not medical doctor, I'm just an educator. So all of what I'm saying is based on the educational perspectives, my educational perspectives. So some of just, content I talk, it is through as an educator, and I understand this way. And then I try to, my goal is like connect this to teaching children with not that greatly well developed developmental, part pathways. So we have this term, and then neurodiversity terms right now many people use. Again, these terms are based on functional and social perspectives. So it's a functional part. It's like a neurodevelopmental disorder. It's pretty much, I believe, it is about the functional human functions. Function is the only part, we can observe, right? So you have intellectual disabilities until you do not say anything, you are very quiet, nobody knows it. But as soon as you start talking, and then they know it, right? Like me, ethnically, I'm different. I'm Asian. However, most of people see me without even talking. They knew I'm from abroad, even though, I could be born here, like my children, they are born here, and then their just language is just no accent. However, my sons told me, just people before even, initiate the relationship or introducing each other with his Korean name, they automatically assume him from, abroad, Asian countries. And then by his name, even though they don't know this is a Korean name, Chinese name, or just a Japanese name, but they assume it. So, and then he started talking, and then no accent and beautiful English, mother tongue language, came out from his mouth, and they all just like, oh, that kind of reactions, right? So when I came to the United States, I was very, very conscious about my accent. And then my friend told me, hey, you are foreign face. You have a foreign face. As soon as you talk, no, just accent from your mouth. That is odd. So I know it's my friend. She's my friend. So she told me, try to comfort me, and then encourage me to not to be down because of that accent. And however, anyway, these, I don't know where these words came, but neurodevelopmental part, and then anyway, just cognitive, those language and social and emotional and behavioral part. And then neurodiversity these days, this is a societal part, right? In society, it's more like people really favor for, want to use neurodiversity. They said, they just, not they said, but more like an inclusive society. So let's not say ability, disability, not the dichotomy, like, here is ability, here is a disability, here is just like, Asian, here is Black, African American, here is just, Mexican. We don't say all these. We just a all more inclusive society, those ethnic diversity, or one country and one, society, and not just, that term. And we truly understand that this is neurodiversity and inclusive society. However, sometimes the neurodiversity, and then it's like, special education part, some of them very extreme needs, they said, there is we don't need a special education. There is no special education. We have just only education. So they may say that, and then concept of special education should be different, changed. Don't force children to be out of, their disability, or just push them too much, just like, with too high expectation, and don't try to fixing them. Yeah, fix. That's not really like we are using for children, human beings. We fix furniture, we fix a chair, but sometimes in the old concept I used in the beginning without knowing about those language nuances and sensitivity, and then I used the fix one time, and then my student course evaluation said she used this word fix, so they one of those students is very criticized about it. And so that's a neurodiversity part, is we say more inclusive society. I hope this neurodiversity does not mean we respect our neurodiversity. It doesn't mean we just accept, yes, we accept every human, every child as who they are. However, still we provide education, right? It doesn't matter they have ability and disability, even, no disabilities. So think about how much they study. If they decide to go to the, college in sophomore year, junior year, they decided to go to college, and then they started taking AP classes. And then, I saw my two sons, what life in their teens time, from the senior, second semester of a senior to junior, and no, junior to senior, and sophomore, junior, and senior times. They, play the sports. So those sports games, it's sometimes like a 10, 11 o'clock, they came home, and then they just stayed up to like a 1, 2 a.m. to finish their homeworks from AP classes. So they had a very, very difficult time and challenging time, and try to, balance their schedules and all kinds. I just, as a mom watching them, I felt so sorry for them. So it's like that's a growing, developing, growing times. We prepare for our future, our adulthood, right? Regardless its ability and disability, and then what they have, that's education. Education is just to prepare them to be adulthood, right? So become a very competent adult, and then productive adult, and then getting a job, and then do the work and do the things that they want to do, and then have a solid incomes. And that's, how they all try. So that's the, education and special education and general education. That's what schools, meant for. So we did not make a school for just, all children, just like, for nursing. So while the parents just work outside and work home, and then outside home, we just nurture them, it's like a caregiver's role. It's not, that is a part of a safe, place, and then parents don't worry about, where their kids are. So it's understandable. However, major purpose and goals for school and school education is for academic teaching. And then there are naturally, because it's a human social culture there, and peers are there, and then certified, prepared teachers there, professionals there. So it's a social environment there. So all other side, good side effects there, they just training social, emotional competence and social skills. So that is a side. We did not intentionally teach those skills, right? However, whenever children just have some emotional difficulties, and then we have schools like counselors, and then we have a school psychologist, we have a social workers, and then they try to talk to them and help them, and then just their maturity, cognitive maturity, we help. Anyway, the story just became very sidetracked. But anyway, that's diversity. I really hope this neurodiversity as a social concept, we accept it, we respect it. However, it does not mean we do not provide the children proper education, regardless they have ability and disability. So this is ability and disability, but impairment, we have these three terms: impairment, disability, and then ability, and then we have a deficit. I personally like to use a deficit. It's not really like a disability because it's a long story again. When we go disability, and then it is really truly like impairment. Impairment is just so like an obvious one. Let's say just, the baby was born without arms, baby is born without, legs. So that is orthopedic impairment. It's so obvious, impairment. So it's an impairment. It's not environmental. It is innate things. So it's a baby's DNAs and genes, and baby's just born with it. It could be, yes, it could be neural part. It could be just, visually you can see it. It's like orthopedic, and then health, other health impairment. You could see those impairment. However, this impairment, because of impairment, and child could have a disability. Obviously, will have a disability because, if a child does not have legs, and then child cannot run. It's like a speed running. So we have, and then running wide, yes, physically child could have disabilities. That's why we have a orthopedic. And then we call it orthopedic impairment. However, the child has, these physical disabilities. And then inability is completely child has no function. So inability, it looks like all functional. However, this is impairment is pretty much like functional. It doesn't matter. Child is born in Korea, born in China, born in United States, England, Germany. It's obviously child will have the same label with impairment, right? However, disability and inability, it could be different. And disability, it has a environmental part. So we have a child innate. We have a nature and nurture story, right? Nature, nurture. Nature is child innate, inherent, by DNA. So it's more like a physiological things. However, nurture is environment, and it is adult for the children, right? Home is environment. However, who manages that home? It's adult. It's a parent, right? Or caregivers, and schools, and then teachers, right? So pretty much when we say environment for the children, it is adult managed, I would not say controlled, but pretty much adult lead society environment, right? So disability, it is combined because we talked about misdiagnosis a lot. That's why I use here is functional intelligence and potential intelligence, because many scholars said intelligence is a fluid and cognitive ability is a fluid. So that means fluid means, oh, today I had that ability and then tomorrow I don't have that ability. It does mean that. That means fluid means by education, by environment. Even though child is born innately and could have this kind of limitations and deficits, however, by environment, our education, our nurture could improve it. That is why we say just cognition is a fluid and intelligence is a fluid. So many people knew it, like, your aging naturally brings kind of a cognitive deficits, weaknesses. So we have so many different programs to maintain all the old, older's mental and cognitive abilities. However, not many people really apply that logic to young children and babies. So that's what I use potential intelligence. It's like it's not, babies born with a potential intelligence. However, we neglect them or we ignore them and then we just stop them. It's not that. We say some children may be born with some, weaknesses. So most of children could naturally, they develop, just follow those, program, the nature program, the developmental stages. So by just like a first 18, around 12 months, child could be independent, physically independent. So that means the child can stand upright and then can walk and started walking. By age 18, child could, oral motor is pretty much just like, matured, and then they could form, language, meaningful language they could say. So we have those kind of, developmental, stages. However, some children, it doesn't naturally come. So they need intentional education, intentional care. And we see them, and then by age 12 months, a child could not, stand upright by himself, by herself, by themselves. And then adults may just add some nurture there. So a little bit speed up, or we just leave the child alone. Well, neurodiversity, we have the child has his own time, and then eventually child will walk. Well, some parents and some teachers chose that, and some parents, well, he's supposed to walk, and then by this time, it's not pushing the baby, but providing more opportunities and more assistance, more support, so child can practice naturally, not without just having stress, just naturally have more opportunity, and then more training, and then more possibilities, a child could develop those skills. So I see that, potential intelligence more like underdeveloped, intelligence. Okay, so that's, Engelman, that direct instruction. Engelman used that term, Glendoman used that term, physical therapist used this term potential intelligence, and then intelligence is fluid and cognition is fluid, and then we just use this term, and then I use this term as an educator. Instead of a disability, inability, impairment, I would love to use this potential intelligence. So I don't want to use intervention. It's just that's not, I don't see that one as an educational term. I rather use a diagnostic education instead of intervention. Okay, so inability, and everybody knows, like a dictionary meanings just like a completely no ability. Completely no ability. However, it's don't mix with impairment. And sometimes people understand the disability. It's not conscious, probably unconsciously. You hear somebody just with a disability, and then automatically they just think about inability. So it's not disability as inability. So, however, inability is still, it's not inborn in the nature. Inability could be, it could be inborn nature. However, think about that. As I said, you go to any society, everybody can play piano. You never seen piano in your whole lifetime. So obviously you cannot play piano. And then you have an inability in playing piano. And then think about the, you live in a desert area, and there is not much water. Even, it's a drinking water is it's very hard to even find the drinking water. And then you saw the ocean or you saw the swimming pool, and then you have an inability because you never learned how to swim in your whole life. So swimming wide, you have inability. It does not mean you have ability or disability. You could have both, yeah, potentially. you just started learning to swim and then you may show amazing ability, or you may have a disability, just like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I have a disability in swimming. Later, you could find it. So these are very like, I know, you hear inability means completely you just out of the skills. However, still inability, it's a potentially environmentally, you never given that opportunity to learn. And then currently you have inability. However, it doesn't mean, there is no possibilities. You could have a potential, ability, right? Cognitive potentials. You could have it, and then you're given the, opportunity, you could learn. It's the same thing, disability, learning disability and dyslexia. It's not done deal. Right? That's why we have education. That's why we have a special education. That's what you teach children, and then find a way to teach. Okay, child just dyslexia, pretty much they have very difficulties in perceptual discrimination. So how we can teach those perceptual discriminations, how perceptually, visually, auditorily child could discriminate those visual inputs and visual auditory sounds. So that's how we go. I'm gonna stop here, and next one, I will talk about this cognitive part, how we can go through this potential intelligence. If once because it's what you believe, your perspectives actually direct your body actions. So mind and body theory, right? So what you believe and then your perspectives, and then you say potential intelligence, underdeveloped potential intelligence a child has. So currently child shows a disability. It does not mean this child has impairment forever, and then no ways, child has to have that until the child last minute. It doesn't mean that. The child may have. However, as an educator, that's the potential and possibility we see is it. So you believe so it's a potential intelligence child has it. And I saw those, so with so many children. You teach so many children shows it. That's why I really, interested in opening learning clinic someday, because I love to see the child and see their potential intelligence, and then every child shows so differences in the same, disability labels they have. It's amazing to see. And some of the children, and then just like, oh, it's like opening the button, and then right away child could run in intellectual world. And some children takes more time, and that could be very good in this part, but this part is not. And then it's more like, connected. It's a cohesive system. So it is very important, how we see, children's this part. And it's exciting to see, once you started the teaching, and then you could see those. Okay, I'm gonna stop here. Sorry, I believe it's could be a long, talk. Bye.